Okay, beautiful people, today we are going to be going over the different types of hunger. As you can see, if it's your first time here, my name is Ash. I am a certified strength and conditioning specialist of 8 years, and I help the everyday athlete with their body recomposition goals. Please enjoy. We're going to split this up into two larger umbrella terms, which are physical hunger and emotional hunger. And these are separate, but they're also related. So physical hunger is exactly how it sounds like. It's a very visceral sensation, right? So when your stomach empties and your blood glucose drops, your gut releases ghrelin, which is oftentimes called the hunger hormone. And this travels to your hypothalamus and it triggers a cascade that tells your brain to find calories. It doesn't particularly care if it comes from like a gourmet meal or like a gas station sandwich. And it's important to note that this type of hunger builds gradually, and it's kind of like a dull emptiness in your stomach. And if you let that gradual build go for long enough, it often gives way to lightheadedness, crankiness, dizziness, bloating, which is usually a result of like gut fermentation and like stomach contractions, right? It's trying to digest food that it doesn't have. And so this easy oversimplified heuristic I give to my clients to determine whether they're physically hungry or not is, would I eat a piece of dry chicken breast? If yes, then the answer is yes. If the answer is an emphatic absolutely not, I want flaming hot Cheetos or a brownie, then congratulations, you have just collected some meaningful data and you are likely craving something specifically. And we're gonna touch on cravings very momentarily. Now, we also have something called emotional hunger, okay? So emotional hunger is deeply, deeply rooted in your brain's reward circuitry, specifically within your dopaminergic system. And this is the same system that's involved in habits, in cravings, and in reinforcement learning. So when we're stressed, when we're sad, when we're bored, or when we're overwhelmed, the brain starts seeking a dopamine hit to regulate that emotional discomfort. And food, particularly high fat, high sugar, hyperpalatable food, is one of the fastest and most reliable ways to distract and regulate yourself. It's important to note that emotional hunger is also rooted in our memories, hence why we often miss certain foods from childhood, and that's also why we classify them as comfort food. And emotional hunger is an incredibly legitimate form of hunger, and I just want you guys to really remember that, okay? All right, so now all types of emotional hunger fall under a larger category of cravings, okay? So this is where things start to get pretty interesting because we can also broadly break up cravings into internal versus external. And I've run out of space on my whiteboard because I did not plan the spacing out well enough, but we've got internal and we've got external cravings, okay? So internal cravings are basically your body's attempt to self-correct for a specifically lacking macronutrient meaning protein, carbs, or fats. A craving for red meat might indicate something like low iron, or maybe you're on your period. Intense sugar cravings often follow like a period of low carb intake. And so the brain, which runs almost exclusively on glucose for the most part, will start putting in its order very loudly, right? Salt cravings can signal low sodium or dehydration, hence why you typically crave a burger or fries after like a very long night of dehydrating alcohol or even like a long run. And so we need to know that our bodies are pretty good diagnosticians, and so I want you guys to listen well and take it very seriously because it is trying to tell you something. Externally based cues are probably the most problematic to body composition goals nowadays because it has everything to do with our environment and, well, capitalism. And I'm gonna try really hard to not go on a capitalist rant, but basically, food marketing has spent decades reverse engineering your dopaminergic reward system. And the warm colors, the close-up photography, the specific language used in food advertising, sinful, decadent, rich, none of it is accidental. And research in consumer psychology shows that visual food cues alone can trigger physiological hunger responses in people who aren't actually physically hungry, that increase, salivation and elevated ghrelin levels, right? And so like, TikTok food content and social media food culture broadly all operate upon the same mechanism. And this is called cue reactivity. And this is a term that's actually borrowed from addiction psychology. And it describes the way exposure to environmental stimuli associated with reward can trigger craving states without any underlying need. And so like, you weren't thinking about birria tacos, but then you saw like a 15-second recipe video on how to make them. And so now your brain has activated an anticipatory reward response and the craving feels completely real and you just want to close that loop, right? And the only way to close this loop is to go get the fucking taco or recognize that it was externally stimulated and wait for it to pass. And so understanding all of this doesn't make you immune to food marketing, but it can give you a moment of pause, right? Like asking kind of yourself, is it me or is it my social media feed? Okay, well, what if you're like, well, what if I'm not physically hungry and I'm just emotionally craving something? Should I listen to that voice? Well, let's examine that, because what's really important is for you guys to understand what that voice is actually saying to you so that you can actually respond to it in a way that makes sense, right? So let's just say the voice is, I'm definitely just bored eating. So boredom is a low arousal negative state. This means that your brain wants stimulation and it is not getting it. And like we said, food is an easy fix because it's activating multiple sensory systems all at once, right? You've got taste, you've got smell, you've got texture, you've got temperature, you've got even just the ritual itself of going to prepare something. These are all genuinely stimulating to your brain. But obviously eating doesn't resolve that underlying state. It just kind of masks it temporarily and then it comes back as soon as the food is done. So I would not necessarily listen to it. Anxiety functions very similarly. When your nervous system is activated by a perceived threat, even if it's vague or just like it's like a modern life threat, the brain will start scanning for relief. And so eating can activate that parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest mode, which is why it genuinely does reduce anxiety in the short term. But again, it's kind of like a Band-Aid, doesn't actually fix the source. So more useful interventions for both, right? We've got physical movement. Even a 10-minute walk can meaningfully reduce your cortisol, activate your endorphin release. You've got behavioral activation by giving your brain something genuinely engaging to do, like a puzzle or making art. You've got social connection, like real human being social connection. For anxiety, things like journaling, naming your emotion, box breathing. These are not like fluffy wellness suggestions. These are evidence-based nervous system regulation strategies. Please, 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 please actually use them. Okay, so that is bored eating. That's one type of emotional. What about sad eating? I think that this one deserves a lot more of a compassionate lens because I think that now more than ever, people are very lonely and using food as their coping mechanism. So I want to start by saying that finding comfort in food is genuinely okay and it's normal. The association between food and emotional soothing is like pretty ancient. It begins in infancy when like feeding is your primary vehicle for warmth, for safety, and for connection. So understand that like there's nothing wrong with you if you enjoy comfort food. I enjoy comfort food all the time. So instead, I'm gonna give you some like practical complements to emotional eating, right? I would say allowing yourself to actually feel the emotion, then immediately escaping it, because emotional suppression is actually correlated with longer emotional stress duration, not shorter. Reaching out to someone, again, going for a walk if no one is available to chat, or actually so underutilized, but to simply sleep. Sometimes sleeping does fix the problem, okay? Again, I wanna go back to this. It is completely okay for food to bring you joy because at the end of the day, food is pleasure. Pleasure is important, despite what optimizer bros tell you. Food is culture, food is memory, love, celebration, these birthday cakes and your late night diner runs with people that you care about. All of these are very meaningful human experiences, and we don't want to pathologize emotional connection to food. And if anything, intuitive eating research consistently shows that a flexible, non-restrictive relationship with food is gonna lead to better physical health outcomes, right? We could just take a look at like the global places in the world with the most centenarians. All of them have strong communities and a relatively healthy relationship with food. If food is your only coping mechanism, that is worth examining. Not because the eating is bad, but because a single toolkit is very fragile. And if every experience of anxiety, sadness, and boredom or overwhelm leads to the same eating behavior, then that behavior is doing too much of the heavy lifting, right? And so again, the goal is not to stop finding comfort in food, but rather to have choices. And I want you to reach for food because you genuinely want it, not because you feel like it's the only thing that you know how to reach for. All right, I forgot about my whiteboard for a second, but we have bored, we have sad eating, and we also have celebratory and happy eating, okay? So broad 3 categories all under emotional hunger, also a type of craving. Okay, so now you have all this information, but guess what? Nothing has technically changed yet because you haven't applied it. I think learning is addictive, knowledge is addictive, but you actually have to apply this information. And if you do want to apply it, you can download the free 2-week anchor meal guide in the description below. I have spent my entire career on developing tools and frameworks for clients like this, and now I'm offering them to you for free. All I ask is for your email. If you want other free resources or like the occasional Asian-inspired recipe or for more realistic cooking tips, you can sign up for my free newsletter. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you guys later.